Tell me about the first drug you tried.
Gosh, what was that? I think it was speed. Ooh, that's a horrible, horrible thing. I was at art school, and it is a bit of a cliche, but it's true. You know, that's where art school, art college is where a lot of drug experimentation goes down. And then I went through, it was in the early 90s, ecstasy stage, going to raves. And then when I was around 25, 26, and I moved up to London, and then I graduated to what I thought was the grown-up drug of cocaine, and that was my drug of choice for about 15 years. But it was the alcohol is a constant throughout this period. You know, I mean, it was at least one bottle a night, maybe two, and those are my nights off from drugs. You know, again, in my mind, I thought there wasn't a problem with the alcohol, it was the drugs that were a problem. But having been diagnosed with depression in my teens, before I started using and drinking heavily, obviously the alcohol and the drugs exacerbated the depression. But I thought I was self-medicating. If you felt like me, then you would drink and use as well.
Tell me about your relationship with cocaine.
Right, well, when I first tried it, I instantly noticed I had a boost of confidence, my self-esteem went up, I felt I could connect to people, and I'm quite quiet normally. I think it's a lot to bring me out of my shell, and boy could I talk on cocaine. And it was a very social thing. It would be, you know, call the dealer when I'm out at a party. But towards the end, it was more about just the drugs towards the end. Towards the end, I'd be getting the dealer to deliver to my flat, and I wouldn't leave. It was less about being social and more about the drugs towards the end. And yeah, there was more isolating and the come downs and the paranoia. It turned really ugly towards the end.
Did you ever think you had a problem?
I think somewhere along the line I did acknowledge I had a drug problem. Not that I was planning to ever completely stop, I just knew I needed to put a foot on the brakes a little bit. And I'd often do geographicals, go and travel for a few months, go to detoxes, see if I can clean up my system, and then I'll try and moderate my using and drinking. But it never lasted long. I try and promise myself I'd wait a month in between taking drugs, and sometimes I wouldn't even last a few days after making a commitment to myself, right, I'm going to get clean up. But I mean, it's, you know, I'm powerless over this addiction. This is what coming into recovery has taught me, that it's not purely a weak will problem. It has been classed as a disease. It is progressive, and on my own, I don't stand a chance. I need help.
Do you miss that part of your life?
I think coming into recovery a little later in life has helped me realize that, you know, I've been there and I've done it. And yeah, I've had some extraordinary times, but the dark times certainly outweigh, you know, the early days when it was actually good fun. So the fact that that side of me is all over, it's a relief. It's a huge relief.
You say the dark times outweigh the really fun times when you're out partying. Tell me about some of those dark times.
Well, towards the end, as I said, it's more about the drugs and socializing, and I couldn't hold down a job, and I would rarely leave the flat. I became nocturnal and sleep during the day and have my curtains permanently drawn. I'd only leave the house to go and get more booze. I'd get the drugs delivered, so very rarely leave the house. And I would spend a lot of time on my own, or maybe one or two other people who were pretty much in the same space I was. And I was utterly hopeless. I was in a state of terror a lot of the time, with withdrawals and, you know, just too many drugs in my system. And I thought I was doomed. I really couldn't see a way out. And my last drug of choice, GHB, which brought me to my knees, I was going into withdrawal I'd have to have a hit every 2 hours, or I was going into withdrawal. And yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for my mother who intervened, I dread to think where I'd be. I think I would have died, which was what my mother was told when I was brought into a rehab in the UK to get an assessment that I would be dead in 6 months if I didn't stop. So yeah, I've absolutely no doubt that I would have ended up probably overdosing by mistake and not woken up.
What was your relationship like with your friends and family?
Non-existent with my family. And the very few friends I had left at the end were all addicts, the same as me. So for a long period of time, I surrounded myself with people who were using as drinking as heavily as myself. And that kind of made me feel, well, it's not quite so bad because other people are doing it. Whereas at the beginning, I was partying at college, and everyone was doing it. But then slowly, they would peel off, and they'd get married, have kids, and knuckle down on their careers. And I was just left with the hardcore users towards the end. And then towards the end, it was just me and my boyfriend. Very, very isolated, very, very lonely, miserable.